In this video, we're going to go through a quick and easy walkthrough of creating a Next.js app and deploying a production-ready build within minutes. Vercel has a very simple and easy-to-use CLI that allows you to run one simple command to deploy from your local machine. It also has the ability to link directly to your Github account in order to automate the build and deploy process. This is a really awesome feature and it's super easy to set up and use. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first things first, there's a few things you're going to need in order to follow along with this walkthrough. First, you'll need to have a Github account. If you don't have one already, they're free and super easy to set up. Next, you need to make sure that you have a node installed on your machine. Check the description for this video for links on how to set those up. And finally, you'll need to know how to run some very basic shell commands in some sort of terminal. For example, if you run the command node-v, it'll let you know if and which version of Node you're currently running. And with that, we're ready to create our Next.js app. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is create our Next.js app. This is pretty easy. We're not going to get too into this, but Next.js is a framework for creating server-side rendering React applications. And if you want to learn more about that, you can come to their website at nextjs.org, and they have some pretty good documentation and tutorials that'll walk you through some more in-depth stuff about Next. So we'll head over to the terminal and create our Next.js app. So we're just going to run npm init next app and call it my next app. And then it's going to prompt you if you want to do the default starter app or pick an example from one of their other repositories. We're going to go ahead and do the default starter app. You can see that was successful, and it spits out some commands saying you can run it in dev mode, build, or start it in production mode. So we're going to go ahead and clear the screen. And now if you cd into my next app and run ls, you'll see all the files that it's created. If we open this up in an editor, you'll see it's already come pre-installed with all the node module dependencies. And then if we run yarn dev, you'll see your app is running here now on localhost. And that's it. Pretty simple stuff. The next thing we need to do is create the Vercel account. So go to vercel.com, click the sign up button in the top right corner, and then it's going to ask you how you want to link and create your account. We're going to be using GitHub today, but you can also do it with GitLab or Bitbucket if that's what you use. I'm not going to do this since I already have an account made. I'm just going to log in. Now that we have the account set up, we need to install the Vercel CLI. We're only going to be running one or two commands, but if you want to learn more about all the things you can do with that, you can come to the documentation over here on their site. So let's go ahead and go back to the terminal, and we're going to run npm i-g Vercel. This is just installing Vercel globally on your machine so you can use it in whichever directory you're in. Okay, then once it's done installing, you can check and see if it's properly working by doing vercel --version, and it looks like we're good to go. Next, we need to log into the Vercel account that we just created. To do that, we're going to run Vercel login, and then it's going to prompt you to enter your email. Then it's going to send an email, confirmation email to that whatever address you just put in there. So let's go ahead and confirm that. Great. Now, if we want to deploy our application, all we have to do is run Vercel. And it's going to ask if we want to set up and deploy the application that we're in the directory we're currently in. If the email account you've signed up with your GitHub has access to multiple Vercel accounts, that's what the scope is. It'll let you switch which account that you want to set this up in. This email only has the one Dead Bear Code account, so we're just going to go with that. No, we don't have an existing project, so we're going to hit no because we're creating a new one. Project's name, let's just do my next app. And the directory is just the default setting, which is in the root of the directory. And then if we had any other like specific scripts or settings that needed to be ran during build time, we could override them. Since this is the default Next app, it already knows what to do, and so we're just going to do the default settings. We don't want to override those. So now it has linked this project to the project in Vercel. Now it's building and deploying. If we head over to the Vercel account, you can see now we see the project. You can see the build logs. And now it says ready to go, and we can go visit the newly deployed Next application. An important side note is after you've linked your project and deployed from the command line, Vercel is going to create this .vercel folder in here. It's going to have a project.json which has your org ID and the project ID that current project is linked to in the account. And so you want to make sure you don't ever check these into Git. By default, Vercel will put this in the git ignore file so you don't accidentally do it. So finally, we want to set up the automation for the build and deploy. Instead of having to manually run the CLI command to deploy, we can set it up to where anytime we make a change to the master branch in our GitHub repository, it'll automatically do a new build and make another deployment. So let's go ahead and set that up. To do that, we're going to go over to GitHub and we need to make a new repository. Call this one My Next App. Since we already have our project set up, we want to come down to this option where we're going to push an existing repository from the command line. That's what we have. So let's copy that link, head back to our terminal. It's going to ask you to log into GitHub. And if we come refresh, you'll see that our new changes are now in the repository. And then now we just need to set it up through the Git integration. So if you come back to Vercel, go into our project we just created, go to the settings for the project, Git integration, and install Vercel for GitHub. Then it's going to prompt to give the access to GitHub. And then you're going to search for the repository that we want to connect this to, which was My Next App. So if we go ahead and take a look at the current application that's deployed, it says welcome to Next.js. So now if we come back to the code editor, then let's go ahead and check out a new branch by running git checkout -b, call it deploy with git. Oops, typo. Then go ahead and make a change here. We'll say deployed with Git Integrations. Then check to see if our change is on local. And we see that, so that's running locally. So now let's go ahead and add this change. Now we have this branch only on our local Git, so we need to push it up to GitHub. So we're going to run git push --set -upstream origin, and then the name of the branch. We're just going to push that to Git, and if we come back to our GitHub repository, we should see this new branch here, and we can do a pull request. You'll see here it shows our change, and then let's go ahead and create this pull request. Now you'll see that the webhooks with Vercel now are already starting to run a build. And if you come back over to Vercel, you'll see that when it runs that build, that's what the second link is down here, and that's a preview environment. So you can test out your changes before actually deploying to production. So if I go visit this, and you see here's my changes now deployed with Git Integrations. But if I come back to the production one, that still says welcome to Next.js. So if I go back to GitHub and this pull request looks good, go ahead and merge that. Then go back to Vercel. You'll notice that if there were no changes, it just promotes this preview app into production. So then if you open up that and we go visit this, you'll see that now we have the changes on production. And that's pretty much all there is to it. It's super easy to get up and going. I hope you found this tutorial useful and enjoyed it. And let me know in the comments what you think about deploying with Vercel.